Quiet, please.
Few in top-level sport will have faced as much adversity as James Blake. Yet in the face of physical and mental body blows, the American has always handled himself with dignity and remarkable humility. There were many highs in a professional career that ended in August 2013. 10 ATP Tour titles, 3 Grand Slam quarterfinals, and a peak ranking of 4 in the world. But the lows included a broken neck, a series of race-related incidents, and the death of his father, who influenced his life hugely. But even when confronted with the toughest of moments, Blake would always find a positive spin. His tolerance and calm amid the storms of life can be traced back to his upbringing, in particular his relationship with his father. Thomas Blake Sr., a sales manager for 3M Corp, first met his future wife Betty on a tennis court, and they would drag James and older brother Thomas Jr. to the club because, as James quipped, they were too cheap to pay for a babysitter. At the end of their hit sessions, Blake's parents would throw James and Thomas a few balls. His mum Betty said James just kept going and going and going. Away from the court, Thomas Blake Sr. inflicted stricter rules on his sons than many other parents they knew. He insisted on an 11:30 p.m. curfew, despite most of their friends staying out until 2 a.m. Blake's father was all too aware of the dynamics between a predominantly white police force and young black men. By her own admission, his white mother, who was born in England, said she didn't understand until her husband's predictions of trouble came true and her sons were pulled over 3 times for no reason. Fast forward to the 2001 US Open, wildcard Blake was facing the then world number 4 Leighton Hewitt, when in the third set Hewitt suggested Blake was getting favourable treatment from line judge Marion Johnson because they were both African American. The 20-year-old Hewitt, who had been penalised twice for foot faults, was heard to say to the umpire, "Look at him, mate, look at him. You tell me what the similarity is." Afterwards, Hewitt vehemently denied his comments were racially motivated. Blake typically did not rise to the remark on or off court. In the post-match press conference, he said, "I figured it was in the heat of the moment when he was fighting out there and not thinking about being politically correct. I'll try to give him the benefit of the doubt. He has this me against the world attitude that makes him play better. That's how he gets pumped up. My reaction was to try to win the match. I didn't want anything to cloud my thought processes." The next day, Blake found the Australian in the locker room. Hewitt insisted he wasn't a racist and apologised repeatedly. Blake accepted his apology, but added, "If it happens again, you'll understand that I won't be so understanding." In 2015, Blake was tackled to the ground outside a New York hotel by an undercover police officer who handcuffed him, having mistaken the tennis player for a suspect in a credit card fraud scheme. The tennis ace believes race played a part in that incident too, and has since used his platform to speak more openly about racism and police brutality. Blake has always tried to make the best out of the worst moments in his life. The bleakest period of his life began on a drizzly day in Rome in May 2004. Racing to a drop shot at full pelt during practice, his foot caught on the damp red clay and he flew forward, colliding head first with the metal net post. Blake was told by doctors he had broken his neck and that he had spared paralysis only by his decision to turn his head at the last second. For the first 2 weeks of his rehab, he wore a neck brace 24/7 and was allowed no physical exercise, yet incredibly he was back on court 6 weeks after the incident. Blake later described it as the luckiest thing that ever happened to me. Why? Because it meant he could spend a precious final few weeks with his father. 3 months after his son's serious injury in Rome, Thomas Blake Sr. passed away following a battle with gastric cancer. Losing his dad affected Blake in many ways. In the short term, it took a real toll on him. A week after the funeral, he awoke with shingles paralysing the left side of his face. It also caused issues with his hearing, eyesight and balance. Doctors said it had been triggered by stress. But longer term, Blake took inspiration from the manner in which his father battled against cancer without complaining. "My mum and I talked about it for years, that my dad should have gotten all the accolades," Blake said. "Now it's a way of making a situation as positive as you can. He can be a great role model for anybody, not just his sons." Blake's positive outlook, helped him through that worrying bout of shingles. Finding himself in hospital for the second time in a few months, he resolved to chuck on a cap and return to professional tennis, though his shortened season and inevitable mixed form saw his ranking plummet to 210 by April 2005. Despite the numerous setbacks and emotional traumas, he was back in the elite within a year as he cracked the top 10 for the first time. He finished the 2006 season as the 4th best player in the world. And to demonstrate his bounce-back ability, 9 of his 10 ATP title wins came after he had broken his neck. He hung up his racket in 2013, after 14 years in the professional game. After a period away from the sport, he returned to tennis as TV commentator, before becoming the tournament director of the Miami Open in 2018. Now 40, Blake will continue to speak out as he strives for a fairer world. He's a strident voice against racism in the USA, particularly following the killing of George Floyd, the black American who died after a police officer knelt on his neck for 9.5 minutes. And he's continuing to honour his dad's memory too. His charitable foundation has raised just short of $1.2 million for the Thomas Blake Senior Memorial Fund at Memorial Sloan Kettering Cancer Center in New York, where his father was initially treated after his cancer diagnosis. James Blake is a man who has experienced most of what life can throw at a person and doggedly fought back each time. A spirit so unbreakable and so inspirational.